Hello and welcome to the 105. My name is Andrew Ivins, Director of Scouting here at 24/7 Sports. If you're watching on TV, you'll notice Cooper Patagna has not joined with me today. And if you're listening online, different voice. We got Tom Loy, National Recruiting Analyst in the chair, and no better time for Tom to pinch hit for Cooper Patagna. National Signing Day right around the corner. I know everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving. We got one final weekend of the regular season. But next thing you know, signing day is going to be here next Wednesday, December 4th. Tom Loy on top of everything. We got a loaded show today. I'm so glad we got Tom on here. We're going to talk about the race for the #1 class. We're going to talk about some 5-star flip candidates. Lots of names moving around when what I call silly season. We're also going to recap the big weekend of college football. And of course, we're going to give some flowers to the true freshmen out there. Tom, I'm going to start right with you. Race for #1. I haven't seen anyone talk about this. And I was playing with the 24/7 Sports class calculator a little too much on Sunday. I think I spent 3 hours on there trying to handicap this thing. You look at the rankings right now, Georgia's sitting #1. Right behind them, we got Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, Oregon. Keep an eye on them. We'll come back to them. Michigan and Miami. So, Tom, tell me about Georgia. I think they have the best chance out of all these schools to finish with the top-ranked recruiting class.
They are going to have a big close, though, if that does come to fruition, because there are some schools pushing hard to take that #1 spot. But all eyes are on 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. He is looking at the Bulldogs. He's looking at Alabama, Texas, and the one school that is making a late push and was just on campus, Auburn Tigers. Do not rule them out in this one. We already talked. Brandon Huffman, our national analyst out west, broke some big news this morning that quarterback, a top 100, top 247 quarterback, Jaron Kiave-Sanga-Politele is no longer considering Georgia. So we got to remove him from the equation. He's still looking. He's committed to Cal. He's talking to Oregon. You got 4-star linebacker Tavian Wallace, committed to Arkansas, still talking to Georgia. And then lastly, on Flip Watch is 3-star linebacker Christian Gass, committed to Tennessee, still talking to Georgia. And then, of course, the heavy fish, which although I don't really think it's going to work out for Georgia, is 5-star cornerback DJ Pickett. I don't necessarily think he's going to stick with LSU. There's a lot of reasons he's going to stick there, but I think he's looking elsewhere, Miami, Oregon, and Georgia in play.
Well, Tom, certainly we're going to get into DJ Pickett later in the show. Justice Terry, for those that are not familiar, top uncommitted prospect in the country, according to the 24/7 Sports rankings. This is a bad dude in the middle, right? He went viral as a 8th grader when he was 14 years old. There was a photo of him working out in his grandpa's garage. He's been on my freaks list, dinged up as a senior, Peach State kid, in-state. Usually the way it goes, all right, Kirby Smart gets the guys he wants in his backyard. Yeah, sure, there's some of them that'll slip out and go somewhere else. Caleb Downs comes to mind. Sammy Brown comes to mind as well. Justice Terry, if Georgia is the perceived leader, you said watch out for Auburn. Anyone else you think has a legitimate shot as we creep closer and closer to signing day?
Alabama's probably more hopeful. Texas is probably in that same boat. Really, I think it's going to come down to those two schools, Georgia and Auburn. It's tight, man. I mean, you talk to both schools. They both have optimism. It's going to be a fun next couple of days because obviously we're in a new era, talking about NIL and things like that. Like, it's going to be very wild behind the scenes over the next, 9 days.
So if Georgia's the odds-on favorite to sign the nation's top-ranked recruiting class, and I need to point out, right, since 24/7 Sports is doing rankings, back in 2012, it's always been an SEC school at the top. We've yet to see a Big Ten program or anyone else come and secure that #1 ranked recruiting class. You'll see up here a lot of familiar schools. Nick Saban's run at Alabama. Kirby Smart's been in there. We always talk about that Texas A&M class in 2022 that scored the most points ever. And Tom, like I said, I was working on kind of the calculations. Okay, who can finish #1? The magic number the past 5 years has been 323 points on the 24/7 Sports composite team rankings. I can't find a scenario where anyone's going to get close to 323. A lot of teams hovering right around 318. One of those programs is Ohio State, right? I just talked about SEC kind of dominating the recruiting front. But the Buckeyes, Ryan Day, big win over the weekend, and they had a big visitor inside the shoe. David Sanders, 5-star offensive tackle, our first 5-star in the 2025 cycle, currently committed to Tennessee, but certainly notable this late in the process, 11th hour, he shows up in Columbus for an unofficial visit.
I handled David Sanders Jr.'s commitment announcement to Tennessee, and I did not see this one coming. I mean, they couldn't have been more locked in with the Vols. Now, again, I already mentioned it. This is an NIL era. You don't know what they're doing down the stretch. Everybody I talk to says he is very, very interested in Ohio State, and a flip is very much on the table. But hey, a little bit visit to Columbus. Hey, throw a little extra money on top of that NIL package. You never know what's really going on behind the scenes, but that is the team to watch when it comes to Tennessee commit, a 5-star offensive lineman, David Sanders Jr. Watch out for Ohio State. But moving forward, I know that they're still trying to plug away at 5-star defensive lineman Malik Autry, who's committed to Auburn. He's not going anywhere. He's going to stay locked in with the Tigers. But a few other names to keep an eye on. My 24/7 Sports crystal ball for 4-star running back Anthony Turbo Rogers is on the Buckeyes. I think they get that one done. And then a couple other names. You got 4-star defensive lineman Jakeem Stewart, who's considering the Buckeyes, and a few others. Micah DeBose, committed to Alabama, a top 247 offensive lineman. Ohio State's trying to flip him. So they have some big, big fish down the stretch, but none bigger than 5-star offensive tackle David Sanders Jr.
Yeah, Tom, and again, busting out the calculator, had my notepad going. I think a key to this would be holding on to Naeem Offord, the 5-star corner. We talked in the pre-production meeting. You don't think the Buckeyes are in all that great of a spot here, but things can change, as you pointed out. And we're going to talk a little bit about Naeem Offord later in the show. Hey, one school I want to ask you about, Alabama, right? Me and Cooper on the 105 last week talked about Kalen DeBoer and his recruiting class, sitting number 3 in the rankings right now. Not a lot of in-state prospects committed. They've had to go coast to coast, expand outside that SEC footprint. Sounds like they could have a strong finish, but they, in my eyes, are playing a little more defense than offense right here.
I couldn't agree more. But the one guy I'm keeping a very, very big eye on, close eye on, is Derek Meadows, a guy we've liked for a long time. He's right inside the top 100, a receiver who's committed to LSU. I absolutely do not expect him to stick with that pledge to the Tigers. The schools I'm watching, Alabama and Michigan, I think Alabama is going to get that one done, but man, I'm just not ready to put in a crystal ball pick. That'd be a really nice addition for the Crimson Tide down the stretch. You got Jace Clarizio, who's committed, or he's looking at Michigan State. He's looking at Alabama, running back target. You got Derek Smith, who's committed to Auburn. So they have some names. Another one to watch is Nashawn Montgomery, one of the more talented, in my opinion, prospects in the state of Florida at the receiver position. And then my crystal ball pick for cornerback Mason Dunn is for him to land at Alabama and flip from Ole Miss. So there's some big fish, again, that they're in play for, but I do not think that they're going to have enough there late to snag that top spot according to our rankings.
I said 323 was the magic number. It seems like a lot of teams can get right around 318, 319. Steve Sarkisian and Texas are one of them. You want to talk about, okay, got some bullets in the chamber, right? Some guys that they can close with. Michael Terry, 5-star athlete. We compare to Cordell Patterson. Is he a tight end? Is he, a wide receiver? Is he a running back? I don't think it matters. And you think about Sark, the play caller, how creative they can get with that type of body. He's in play. Justice Terry's another one. Seems like they're also trying to maybe pry some offensive linemen away from others. Texas could close strong, and they too have to play a little defense on their commit list here in the 11th hour.
You named it right at the start. Michael Terry III, that is the guy that they need to get. I don't know if he's a tight end, receiver, athlete. He could probably play any of those positions at a high level, but that's the one that Texas needs to land. You mentioned Michael Fasusi along the offensive line, 5-star talent, committed to Oklahoma. Now, if he's going to flip, his best relationship is with Oklahoma offensive line coach Bill Biedenbaugh. So if he's going to flip, it's going to surprise a lot of people. But Texas A&M, both talking to him. I mentioned it already. They're also in play for 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry, but I just don't see that one working out. 4-star defensive end Nathaniel Marshall, Auburn commit, just visited over the weekend. Kind of a late surprise there, so keep an eye on them. And then just a couple more to mention. 4-star edge Javion Hilson, 4-star linebacker Madden Faramo, and 3-star linebacker Kellen Wiley, all strongly considering Texas down the stretch. You said it. Steve Sarkisian is not one I'm going to bet against. They got plenty of bullets in the chamber. It'll be a fun next week for Longhorns fans.
All right, so Georgia, we think's the odds-on favorite. I think if we were betting men, hey, we might be. I think Texas, if you can get some long odds there, they too have kind of that runway. That's the word I'm using to get that #1 ranked recruiting class. You have two dark horses, right? And initially, I didn't have this team on here, but the Auburn Tigers, Hugh Freeze, man, over the weekend, huge win on the Plains. Kind of that magic in Jordan Hare. It comes to life again. I was talking with a college coach a few weeks ago, and they pointed out it doesn't matter what the on-field record is, right? That stadium's consistently packed. They got a new football facility, and then the biggest thing, they got a really good collective name, image, and likeness. So it sounds like you think there is a scenario where Auburn could finish #1. It's just probably not likely.
That's perfectly stated. I think that they got a really good shot to land 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. I have been talking to sources, nitpicking, just reaching out to anybody I possibly can this morning. And Georgia feels great and Auburn feels great. So someone's going to be wrong. And then you also got Georgia commit Isaiah Gibson, a 5-star defensive end, talking to Michigan. He's also talking to Auburn. That's a long shot, but the Tigers are in it. My crystal ball has been in for months for cornerback Naeem Offord, one of the top prospects in the country, a 5-star to flip from Ohio State to the Tigers. Still feel great about it. And then Usmani Kroma, top 247 running back, committed to Georgia, shows up at Auburn around the crazy storm the field atmosphere we just saw. Again, it wouldn't shock me if he flips to Auburn. And then lastly, another flip they're working on, 3-star defensive lineman Darion Smith, committed to Tennessee. I think that Auburn's going to be able to get that one done. So if you can get all of those guys, maybe 4, you missed on Isaiah Gibson, they're going to continue shooting up that rankings, and they're going to be a force to reckon with. And let's be honest, Hugh Freeze, that staff, wouldn't shock me if there's somebody that we didn't mention right now that could end up at Auburn come signing day.
I love me some Darion Smith. One of my favorite guys I watched on tape here as a senior playing at St. Francis Academy up in the DMV, Hugh Freeze, not afraid to go into an area that's traditionally hard to recruit. Tom, we don't have time to talk about him. I just got to point out, keep an eye on Oregon, right? Dan Lanning closes strong. Day 2 in it for a lot of 5 stars. But coming up on the other side, we're going to talk about some of these potential 5-star flips. Tom talked Naeem Offord. We mentioned David Sanders. Justice Terry, certainly a name to know. But stick around. We got more 5 stars that could be on the move. Welcome back to the 105. Like we said, signing day right around the corner, Tom. Lots of 5 stars could potentially be on the move. You know, a couple of years ago, a lot of these guys were locked in. Now we got bidding wars going on behind the scenes. That's just the nature of the beast. And one prospect we need to talk about, David Sanders, right? Watch college football this year. Offensive line depth, a major issue. We're seeing some true freshmen plug and play at certain places. You got Jordan Seaton there at Colorado. We've seen Josiah Thompson there at South Carolina. David Sanders, one of our favorite tackle prospects. We just mentioned him. Longtime Tennessee commit. You were there in Charlotte for his announcement, but Ohio State continues to chip away. Do you think David Sanders could potentially waver here before it's time to send in some paperwork?
If you talk to 5-star quarterback and Ohio State commit Tavian St. Clair, he would say that it's going to happen. He's been working on this one for a while, for the last couple of weeks. He took to Twitter and was joking about how all the, Michigan was getting all this hype, and he's just kind of puts like a sly little wink face on there. They were hyping up the addition of Bryce Underwood. Well, he's already working on David Sanders Jr. So I think this is more than just an NIL play. I do think that the interest is very legitimate. He loves Ohio State, and he was really close to picking them on the first go-round when he picked Tennessee. So this is going to be one to monitor over the next couple of days. I checked in with a source at Ohio State, kind of asking, was this like, how you feeling coming out of the visit? Was this really like an NIL play? They think they're in it. It's going to be something to watch. That would be a nice pairing with Tavian St. Clair and David Sanders Jr.
Yeah, for Tennessee, under Josh Heupel, they have yet to start an offensive lineman that staff has recruited from the high school ranks. It's been a lot of plug and play through the transfer portal. And I think David Sanders, yes, he's on the leaner side. Reminds me of Charles Cross, former 5-star that's starting now with the Seattle Seahawks. He needs to bulk up, but I think there's a chance you get him in early, right? Spring practices, maybe he could be a guy in 2025. Tom, I think you can say the same thing about Naeem Offer, five-star corner. We just mentioned him in the previous segment, longtime Ohio State commit. But the SEC, Dan Lanning in Oregon, they've all been kind of circling and are ready to make a move on him.
Skid has been to just about every Auburn home game this fall. Not bad, unless you're an Ohio State fan. But he loves the Tigers. He loves the staff, loves everything about Auburn, and he's very excited about the future there. So Auburn's working really hard to flip him from Ohio State. There's chatter that he's going to return to Columbus this weekend, which would make things quite interesting. But talking to a source, many believe this is more of an Auburn-Oregon battle down the stretch. So NIL package is very strong from both schools, but my 24/7 Sports crystal ball remains firmly on Auburn coming out of an incredible weekend on the Plains.
What about Florida? Naeem Offer did take an official visit to Gainesville. Billy Napier, hot seat to the toast of the town there in Gainesville after back-to-back wins. They're starting to get things going on the recruiting front. Any chance that staff can maybe pry him out of the Yellowhammer State?
They've got some juice, no question about it. I mean, they're about to pick up more commits today. It's a good day for Florida Gators fans, but I don't see that signing day surprise for the Gators.
Oh, sticking with the Sunshine State, DJ Pickett. He's a long-time LSU commit, multiple schools looking around. Mario Cristobal in Miami involved. DJ Pickett, I call him a unicorn, a black swan. Every analogy you want to kind of use. This is a 6'4" cornerback. Actually, Tom watched him over the weekend in the Florida State playoffs. Zephyr Hills was taking on Orlando Jones. DJ Pickett tasked with covering Vernell Brown, one of our favorite wide receivers in the 2025 cycle. If I was scoring the fight, I would give it to Vernell Brown, but DJ Pickett still had his moments, two-way guy getting it done on offense. But this is one, and Tom, I've been doing this for a long time. Same with you. It feels like LSU kind of fade in here, and someone's going to jump in before signing day and get him locked up.
Getting him back on campus will help. So as long as that trip to LSU takes place this weekend, that's going to be big for those in Baton Rouge. But the two teams I'm watching, and I said it the day he committed, watch out for Miami, watch out for Oregon. His recruitment, when he actually committed that day, there was a lot of chatter that it wasn't going to be LSU, and then it obviously was. So Ducks could land him, but I'm watching Miami very closely. I think the Hurricanes are going to get this one done, and I could see that entire staff just taking to Twitter and blowing it up. That would be a huge pickup.
Well, Cooper always calls Mario Cristobal the Grinch, right? Christmas right around the corner. I don't know about you in your neighborhood. Lots of holiday decorations out pre-Thanksgiving. It kind of blows my mind. So maybe he will steal one from under Brian Kelly's tree. Tom, another guy I want to mention, Lamont Rogers, five-star offensive tackle, committed to Missouri. Mike Elko, Texas A&M, they're kind of chipping away there as well. What's the latest with Rogers?
Myself and national analyst Mike Roach, we are on Texas A&M to flip the Missouri offensive line commit. It's a five-star talent, a big-time prospect, but just I don't see that one sticking and remaining in for good news for Missouri Tigers fans. So everything we've heard, we expect Texas A&M to get it done. Mike Elko behind the scenes, you got guys like Derek Miller battling it out. I think good news is on the way for Aggies fans.
Yeah, and Texas A&M already has a few pelts on the wall in terms of flipping big-time prospects from other SEC programs. I don't think many people expected Mike Elko to recruit like this coming from Notre Dame, what he did there at Duke. Tom, this is a guy that me and you talk about all the time, right? We were in the car this summer going to an event. You called him up. Lincoln Cure, our number one ranked tight end prospect out there in Kansas when he's not playing football, when he's not done basketball, when he's not winning state titles in the hurdle, he's working on the farm, right? Kind of a throwback player, committed to the in-state Wildcats, but there are some other schools that are trying to flip him before signing day.
Oregon nearly landed his commitment when he picked Kansas State. It was really, really close and went back and forth down the stretch. But I will say it's going to take a lot to flip him from Kansas State. They have a great NIL package. They take care of their own. But unless he gets stuck in some type of a snowstorm, which canceled his last visit to Oregon, he is planning on being in Eugene this weekend to give Oregon one more look. Kansas State doesn't love it, but they understand it's part of the process. I always felt that he wanted Oregon a little bit more than everybody else around him. You talked about it, one of our favorite prospects this entire class. It's going to be fun to see what he decides to do, but it's a close battle. Kansas State fans should be a little worried. Oregon fans should be pretty excited.
I'm telling you, keep an eye on Dan Lanning. We talked about, all right, who can finish number one? It would take a lot, outside chance, but it's like a long parlay, like a 10-leg parlay, and I think Oregon could finish up there, at least in the top five, which would be the third straight top five finish for the Ducks. Two Alabama commits, right? 2 5-stars for Kalen DeBoer that are committed. You kind of hear some rumors. You read your stuff. You read some of the other people on 24/7 Sports. You get in the Slack channels, and there's maybe some more kind of tea leaves out there. Michael Carroll, our number 1 ranked interior offensive lineman, looking at Colorado. And you got Dijon Lee, 5-star defensive back out of California, another kind of unicorn when it comes to the height, weight, speed. Both those guys are committed to the Crimson Tide, but DeBoer and that staff going to have to get it across the finish line here.
Look, man, I don't ever want to bet against Deion Sanders when it comes to a signing day surprise, and they are very much in play over at Colorado when it comes to 5-star offensive lineman Michael Carroll. He's committed to Bama, but I checked in with sources. Alabama could not feel better. The parents really want him at Bama. I guess they took the trip to Colorado just to make sure everything stays on the up and up. But Colorado's battling. I think he's going to stay at Alabama. And then moving on to Dijon Lee, talked about the 5-star cornerback. You got a bunch of schools coming after this kid, and rightfully so, because he's a baller. You got USC, Georgia, Texas A&M, all trying to make a run at him. I do expect him back at Alabama for the Iron Bowl this weekend. And look, when I was in Tuscaloosa for the first time earlier this year, I was on the field standing in front of Dijon Lee and a couple of the other prospects. When Georgia took that late lead, I turned around and Dijon Lee looked gutted. I mean, you would think he was a diehard, longtime Alabama fan, that he was already on the team. And then obviously once they came back and won that game, the dude was elated. He was so fired up. So not going to rule anything out with USC being the in-state favorite, but I think Alabama gets it done and firms things up this weekend.
Oh, Tom, you called Michael Carroll an offensive tackle. That's fine because he's got offensive tackle size, but he wants to be a guard. And he's one of the best in the class when it comes to pulling. And I say he tattoos linebackers there at IMG Academy. He's a guy, you're going to hear the name. You're going to see him on your TV screens in 2025. The next big thing out of IMG Academy, right? Jordan Seaton, Tyler Booker, J.C. Latham, Evan Neal, Francis Mauanoa, Michael Carroll is up next. All right. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, a little Week 13 college football reaction. Stick with us. The 105 is back. Andrew Ivins, Tom Loy. We said the show was going to be focused primarily on signing day, recruiting. It's coming up, right? Yeah, just with the transfer portal, there's still some names out there that are going to be impacting your favorite team in 2025. But Tom, it was a big weekend of college football. Usually me and Cooper, we go studs and duds. I thought, all right, we're going to just kind of rip that up. Want to save some time for the recruiting. And why not go team of the week, player of the week, right? Tons of different options up here. I'm going to give you the tee box, which is normally the case when me and you are playing golf because you're beating me every hole. Give me your team of the week here for week 13 in the college football season.
You said it, not me. Look, I'm going to go with Notre Dame. I think the Fighting Irish not only are had a great week, but they had a good season so far, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. But they moved to 10-1 with a 49-14 win over Navy. They are just not only beating opponents, they are dominating them. And that's really like in covering Notre Dame for as long as I did, there's always that late season slip up, hiccup. And they started out slow this year. They were fine in the win against A&M. I'd say A&M was fine in that game as well. Both teams have gotten better. They beat A&M on the road. Then they have their big slip up against Northern Illinois. But I know Riley Leonard was banged up the second half, probably shouldn't even have been in the game. But regardless, they have outscored opponents 392-99 over the last 9 games, a 44-11 average per game. That'll work. You got Mike Denbrock and Al Golden, the coordinators there, tremendous group. I'm still kind of waiting to see if a team is going to truly make Riley Leonard beat them with his arm. He is outstanding with his legs, and he's making timely throws. But this team, what they did against Navy, what they've done all year with the injuries, Ben Morris and Howard Cross, Charles Jagasaw. I mean, this team is real. And I think for the first time since really like I've been covering Notre Dame, this is the most complete team to not only get to a national championship. I really think they actually have enough talent there to win it this year.
I got to throw a Patag flag on you. That's what we do on the 105. Notre Dame beat Army. They didn't beat Navy. That already happened there. They did it at Yankee Stadium. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, Tom, saw some of that game. It was on one of the screens Saturday night. What stood out to me, and you just said it, all right, Notre Dame, complete organization, lots of injuries, but you're seeing some of these true freshmen making more and more of an impact. I mean, Bryce Young, former 5-star, he blocks that initial punt there in the first quarter, which really kind of turned the momentum in the favor of the Irish. You have Kingston Viamo Asu out there. I mean, does it feel like the recruiting success is starting to pay off for Marcus Freeman? Because when you think about it, right, college football playoff, you got to play a lot more games. Injuries are going to happen down the stretch. And it just seems like Notre Dame, for the first time in a while, they have depth, and it's athletic depth that is ready to play and make an impact.
They are recruiting, and I know a lot of people want to complain, oh, Notre Dame's not going to finish strong in this class. They are recruiting the right type of kids. They are recruiting NFL talent, and it feels a little different from when Brian Kelly was here. So, no, Notre Dame's not going to have a big splash to end the cycle. I think they're going to miss on Derek Meadows, who's basically their biggest target. They were kind of in on Nathaniel Usu-Boateng. I don't think that one's going to work out. But I think all in all, they have some difference makers in this class. And I think the lowest ranked guy is still a guy who could potentially start at Notre Dame. I don't think they brought in guys that are just, spot fillers, if you will. So I like what they're doing. I think Chad Bowden, Marcus Freeman, all the guys behind the scenes doing a really good job.
Bryce Young, file that name away. You heard it here first on the 105 a few weeks ago when we talked about true freshmen that are going to impact college football playoff race, getting more and more pressures down the stretch. Not surprising. Son of a former NFL Hall of Famer. He has the goods. We loved him at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio last year. Went from a 3-star to a 5-star in the matter of like 3 months. Tom, my team of the week, how about Ohio State? All eyes on Columbus Saturday for that noon game. It was a cold one. Justin Fields there making the picks on game day. A lot of people talking up Indiana. It was close early. And then I think Ryan Day in the Buckeyes reminded everyone who Ohio State is and who is the king of the Big Ten. 35-18 win for the Buckeyes. The number that really stands out to me, Tom, Ohio State held Indiana to just 2.6 yards per play. I thought it was the big names coming up at key moments for Ohio State. Hey, Caleb Downs with that punt return. I was kind of listening to some of the national media reaction, and there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, I didn't know Caleb Downs was a return man like that." I'm like, "What? Did you not watch him in high school?" I put it in his scouting report, which you can find on 247sports.com. If Caleb Downs wanted to be a running back, he would have been a top 247 running back for us. He is that dynamic with the ball in his hands. I just thought it was an all-around performance. Carnell Tate, hey, Jeremiah Smith didn't even have to score, and Ohio State still finds a way to get it done. I think Ryan Day needed this one, and what really stands out for me, much like with Notre Dame, it was a convincing win in a key spot for them. So my team of the week, Ohio State.
No argument here. Zero argument with that one. I thought it was a phenomenal performance, man. The Buckeyes, man, all the hype I have. I have friends in Indiana. They were hyping up that game, saying the Hoosiers are real and they're gonna go into Columbus and get a dub. Kind of backfired. I don't think Indiana played bad though, but man, special teams was rough for the Hoosiers.
All right, Tom. Give me a player of the week. A lot of different candidates here, so go ahead. Give me the player of the week.
Kansas running back Devin Neal was phenomenal in the win over Colorado this weekend. And it's Colorado. I'm not going to butcher it like I did earlier. 37 carries, 207 rushing yards, 3 scores, 4 catches, 80 yards, another score. I mean, that is about as complete a performance as you're going to get. So on the year, he's got over 1,100 yards, 15 scores on the ground. I mean, this dude is making defenders miss, running through guys. He embarrassed a Colorado defensive back on that opening touchdown catch and run from 50 yards out to start the game. But The guy has over 4,000 career rushing yards. Give that man some love. What a special career he's had so far in Lawrence.
Oh man, I loved those uniforms for the Kansas Jayhawks. The blue on the red. We need more of that in college football. I also got to give a shout out here to former 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting Barton Simmons. Devin Neal, when he was running the show, top 247 running back, went back, was kind of reading through his notes, and he said potential workhorse at the Power 4 level at one point down the line. I think we saw that on Saturday against Colorado. Also got to give a shout out to Bai Jobe, former top 247 recruit, transferred in from Michigan State. He had a pair of pressures for the Jayhawks there at a key moment in the second half, helping them take down Coach Prime in Colorado. Tom, I'm going to go with my player of the week, and really I was going to consider them for the team of the week. That's Florida defensive lineman Caleb Banks. He has been awesome these past two games, these past two upsets in the swamp for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. 7 pressures and 2 sacks in the upset of Ole Miss. That's after totaling 8 pressures and a sack the week prior against LSU. Louisville transfer. This is the best 2-game stretch of his career, and I think he's really playing his way into some day 3 of the NFL draft consideration. You know, again, I think Florida, what they were able to do against Ole Miss, you can highlight a number of different individuals here. Safety Bryce Thornton, 3 interceptions. That's a really dinged up secondary. They got guys that are getting it done. Tyreek Sapp, a former top 100 recruit. He's been awesome the past 2 weeks as well. And then you got DJ Lagway, first 2 starts against ranked opponents, full starts where he's in there the entire game. He's picking it up. And I thought he was awesome against Ole Miss. We thought he was a dual threat talent. He is a dual threat talent. Obviously, he's a bit injured with that hamstring, but man, the arm, it just keeps making these throws. And we saw that on the senior tape. That's why he finished as our number 1 ranked quarterback. His ability to take a hit and still distribute that football showed up at so many key moments for the Gators. I thought DJ Lagway was awesome. I said it, I think, on a space we had before this game. I think the number 1 Christmas present in the Sunshine State under a lot of trees is going to be that number 2 DJ Lagway jersey for the Florida Gators.
Yeah, zero argument. You and Cooper completely spot on with the evaluation of DJ Lagway. I thought he was going to take some lumps early. Hey, long career left to go, but man, some of the throws he's making, phenomenal for a freshman.
DJ Lagway, a true freshman. We're going to highlight some more true freshmen that shined in week 13 of the college football season, and 2 of them we think would be possible transfer portal candidates. Stick with us. And welcome back to the 105. Tom, I'm going to be honest here. This is my favorite segment that we do every week. And like Sunday morning, I'm like a kid on Christmas. I just can't wait to get into the PFF, see which true freshman, who played the most snaps, who graded out well. So normally Cooper picks 2 freshmen. I pick 2 freshmen. I'm going to allow you to go first. And I love this guy that you've highlighted because it wasn't too long ago. Someone at 24/7 Sports labeled this guy as a 5-star bust, and both me and Cooper were not happy about that designation.
I don't know if I want you to call him out or not, but I remember hearing all about Auburn freshman receiver Cam Coleman in fall camp, and some Auburn sources were saying that the light just wasn't coming on as quickly for Coleman as it was for freshman wide receiver Perry Thompson. Some people were talking about Thompson being a little bit more day 1 ready, and probably physically he is. And Coleman started out a little slow. I remember being in an Auburn game kind of like, this is really the top 5 player in the country. But man, ever since then, that has absolutely been a thing of the past. He's been good all long. Don't get me wrong. But the past 2 weeks, he has been great. He has been special. The guy that you guys have highlighted all year long, and for the last couple of years, 8 catches, 100 yards, 3 scores. Last weekend, 7 for 128 and 2 more scores in an overtime win against A&M this past weekend. He is an absolute dude, and he is just scratching the surface. I mean, special guy. Again, you, Cooper, the rest of the scouting team absolutely nailed this eval.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget with Cam Coleman on the younger side. And we always mention Ryan Williams' age. Cam Coleman, he's also just a young pup that was figuring it out. And what really sold me, and I always say this, the Under Armour All-America game, one-on-ones, we saw him make those acrobatic grabs. And we need to point out, Cam Coleman was the 24/7 Sports True Freshman of the Week, highlighted by Chris Hummer. You can find that every Sunday. I also love reading that story. Reminded me of George Pickens coming out. And I, too, have a few Auburn fans that hit me up in the middle of the game against Texas A&M. They said, Cam Coleman breakout game. I said, Cam Coleman revenge game. You know, everyone's knocking him for being a five-star prospect. Tom, love that one. I'm going to go to Miami, and I'm going to talk about running back Jordan Lyle. Huge against Wake Forest. Yeah, you know, Miami, the score, it looks like the Hurricanes were in full control, but it really wasn't until the fourth quarter where they put the pedal to the metal. And Jordan Lyle was a big reason why. You know, he's working in a senior heavy rotation. A lot of guys ahead of him, Damian Martinez, you got Mark Fletcher. But when Jordan Lyle has had his opportunity as a true freshman, he's been excellent. You see it up there, 7 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. He's a good reminder as we get closer and closer to the end of senior seasons and we finalize our rankings. You want running backs where the arrow is pointing up. That was Jordan Lyle. He earned a 4th star last cycle, right before signing day. Then we decided to move him into the top 247 when we finalized things in January. He's a kid that was at St. Thomas Aquinas, and as a 12th grader, he averaged 10.6 yards per carry, 21 touchdowns in that senior campaign. I think he's the future there in Coral Gables. We know Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal, they're going to continue to get big bodies up front. They want to get a power run game. Yeah, Cam Ward is unlocking some things for them, but it starts with them kind of moving between the tackles. Jordan Lyle, if you play, fantasy college football, you're looking for a running back to stash for 2025, get Jordan Lyle in the waivers now. Add him before we're all talking about him in August.
My next one is going to be Charlotte freshman quarterback, a guy you know really well, Deshaun Purdy. Really talented quarterback, 16 of 32 for 396, 3 touchdowns and a pick in the 39-27 victory over FAU. I mean, this is a guy you and I have talked about for a long time. We showed him a ton of love at the All-American Bowl underclassmen combine, really, I think for 2 straight years. And the last year he made our all-combine team. I mean, I'm really not surprised he's had success. Fairly easy eval off the hoof. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. He has that, I'm ready for college type physicality, but then you kind of get to know him, you talk to him, and you see that he's got this calm demeanor, that he's ready for the college level. So I think you buy into guys like that. So it's not easy to predict how they're going to do under the bright lights, but really when Charlotte was trailing by 1 in the 4th, he throws this pick, and it wasn't a great throw. He was a poor read, but instead of getting down and on himself, he steps back up and he throws the game-winning touchdown on the very next drive. So unless you're an FAU fan or an alum, looking at you, Ivins, I think you love to see it, and you love to see the demeanor and the impressive performance from a true freshman. So I think at this point, and I hate to say it, but in this day and age, don't be surprised if schools happen to find out if he's interested in a potential transfer after this year, because there is a lot to like when it comes to Deshaun Purdy. It's just something you got to talk about in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I gave a shout out to Barton Simmons. His eval, Barton Simmons, obviously now the general manager there at Vanderbilt. But how about Tim Brewster, interim head coach? He picks up his win against FAU, taking over for Biff Poggi there. Tim Brewster's son, Clint Brewster, on the 24/7 Sports scouting team. So just want to tip the cap to him picking up that victory. Tom, I watched way too much of this game. I watched it with one of my buddies who is not in the scouting business. He was knocking Deshaun Purdy's footwork the entire game. I said, okay, but are you seeing what he is doing with the arm talent? He was peppering that 2nd and 3rd level, threw for almost 400 yards. And you're absolutely right. We are in an era where these Power 4 programs, right, they have scouting departments that are going through the Group of 5 tape. Deshaun Purdy, whoever takes over there in the Queen City, they're going to have to work to keep him committed, because he's a developmental quarterback prospect that has now played at the FBS level and shown that he can get the job done. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a P4 program out there that's looking to say, hey, we want to take this guy, kind of stash him on the roster, and he could be our number 2 or number 3 and potentially our starter one day. Tom, my last true freshman that I'm going to give some flowers to here, Yannick Smith at East Carolina. And the reason why I want to highlight him, he was a 4-star prospect for 24/7 Sports, right? Everyone thinks, oh, you guys just rank the Alabama, the Georgia kids high. No, we look for group of 5 kids that we can stamp. Against North Texas, he delivered. He played a career high 82 snaps, caught 7 passes for 112 yards and a score in the comeback win. This is a kid I saw last year at the Shrine Bowl of the Carolinas. He was the South Carolina Class 5A Player of the Year, 1,500 receiving yards as a senior. Kentucky came in late. The South Carolina Gamecocks were interested in Yannick Smith. He stuck with East Carolina, and I think he is going to be a star in the American Conference moving forward if ECU can hold on to him, because everyone is looking for wide receivers these days. Yannick Smith, he has what it takes to be a playmaker out on the perimeter with his size, speed, burst, and ball skills.
No argument. And again, but it comes back to my question, can East Carolina keep him? Can Charlotte keep Deshaun Purdy? It's something to watch, man. It's sad that because you think you want to see these guys like help build a program. But like all of a sudden, Alabama, Auburn, Notre Dame, they're all going to kind of back channel and find out these guys have interest. It's tough, man, but it's what we're living in.
And final one, I just want to give a shout out to FSU quarterback Luke Kromenhoek. Picks up his first career win as Florida State rolls over Charleston Southern. He's a guy that we said it was going to take some time. He was excellent, 21 of 25, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That'll do it for Freshman Flowers. We'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to make some bold predictions with signing day right around the corner. Final few minutes here of the 105, Tom, and I want to circle back to signing day, right? I think we're 10 days away. I was trying to do the math in my head. Not my expertise. That's why I'm in sports. They do statistics for you. But how about a bold prediction with signing day right around the corner? I'm going to give you mine, right? Just something that I'm anticipating. I can see us next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday talking about this. I think one of these 5-star prospects is not going to sign early. And I need to remind everyone, right? The National Letter of Intent, so NLI, not the NIL, is no more, right? Now these prospects are going to be signing, or I should say prospective student athletes are going to be signing financial agreements with these schools. And, you know, depending on who you're talking to, some of these guys just could show up to the school of their choice, not only in January or during the summer months. There's really not a lot of binding paperwork out there. And, you know, I keep thinking about this. There is yet to be any coaching changes at the Power 4. So I think, you know, one of these big name recruits is going to hold out. That's my prediction.
Zero argument with that. My big prediction, and I was kind of torn between 2 schools regarding a huge finish on signing day or leading up to signing day. I'm going to go Auburn slightly ahead of Michigan. I want to go quick love to Michigan. They're still in it for 5-star offensive lineman Ty Haywood, top 247 receivers Quincy Porter and Derek Meadows. They could land Javion Hilson, one of the coveted edge rushers. But I'm going to go with Auburn because I think they're going to land at least 2 5-stars. Justice Terry, the defensive lineman we talked about, and cornerback Naeem Offord. And I think there's still a dark horse, although I would call him a long shot really, with 5-star defensive end and Georgia commit Isaiah Gibson. I like them to flip top 247 running back Usmani Chroma from Georgia. And one of your favorites, I like them to land 3-star defensive lineman Darion Smith from Tennessee. I'm also, just in terms of talking to people at Auburn, I'm not ruling out a flip on somebody we have not mentioned at all today on the show. There are a lot of people calling and talking to Hugh Freeze right now, trying to get in the class.
War Eagle there, Tom. Love all the scoop. Hey, and if you like Tom Loy, if you like what you hear on the 105, make sure to check us out, guys, every Monday here on CBS Sports Network. And you can find us Wednesday on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. And we got to plug 24/7 Sports as well. That's where you can find Tom Loy's work. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.